welcome everyone once again to this masterclass series by Pragmatic Leaders. Today we have amazing speakers with us. Next we have Gokul Nair. He is joining us from San Francisco. He brings in 13 plus years of industry experience across product management and engineering functions in network security. He is working as director of product management and Aryaka Networks, and he has built amazing products for Cisco in past.
Welcome, Gokul, and thanks for taking the session. Over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. Team, am I audible?
Very loud and clear.
Excellent. Let me just start sharing my screen. My screen is, you can see my screen, right?
Yes,
can you see my screen?
We can.
Yeah, perfect.
We can.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, everyone. So today we will spend the next 20 minutes roughly on identifying what should be some of the best practices you follow when attempting any product sense interview. To give a quick introduction to myself, as Kevin introduced you, I'm working with Aryaka Networks, leading the product management portfolio there. So from a product sense perspective, the areas that we are going to spend time today is, first one, obviously, understand what a product sense question is. Understand what is a recommended structure to approach these sort of questions. And then, of course, we will take up a question that I will walk you through to make sure the approach or the structure fits in with a question-based approach. So starting off with the basics, right? What is product sense? Again, nothing very fancy. The product sense is basically a PM's capability to identify what makes a great product, right? And what is a great product? Two things. One, it should be able to achieve the business objectives, mostly aligning with the mission statement of your business. And second, it should show enough user empathy, like it should be solving a major pain point for the end user. So as long as your idea or the product idea displays these two characteristics, yes, it makes product sense. Now, how would product sense questions look like? They typically look like, how would you improve something? Or how would you design something, right? Example could be, how would you improve Facebook? Or how would you build a parking lot? And the product sense questions are like probably one of the most common interview questions that you will go through. And I must say, if you will be really lucky if you are able to go through a complete interview process without going through this. So this is one of the most repeated or most commonly asked pattern. And that's the reason why I thought probably we'll spend some time on this today. So when an interviewer asks you a question like, how would you improve Facebook? What's running in an interviewer's head? What is he looking for, right? He's basically, or the most important thing for him would be how you approach the problem or what your thought process is. And this is exactly where a structure will come to your rescue. The second aspect where you will be evaluated is like how creative, innovative, or impactful your idea is. I mean, personally, when I put myself in an interview candidate's shoes, the second part is a little risky part, because at the spur of the moment to come up with really creative, impactful, you don't know, it's a big chance you are taking, right? Maybe if the topic is very familiar for you, you might be able to, or you have done good amount of research on that, you will be able to come up with a very creative idea. But if you are caught off guard, you might be probably proposing a mediocre idea. But if your approach is strong, then you might still be regarded as a strong candidate. And that's the reason why I thought we should spend more focus on the approach. And definitely the creative heads will come up with more creative ideas, where obviously they get a brownie point. So let's start with a sample question. How would you improve Facebook? the natural temptation for a candidate who does not try to go through a structure or an approach would be, okay, let me think about what's next big thing Facebook is about to do. Maybe we'll start thinking about Clubhouse and we'll say, okay, Mark Zuckerberg had said voice-based social media is going to be the next big thing. Clubhouse is disrupting that space, so I'm going to build it, right? This should not be your answer. Here you are going with a solution rather than going through an approach, right? So that's the most important part. Understand, more than the solution, your focus should be on the approach. So we will see what could be some of the approaches. I mean, in a sense, like how should you be approaching a problem like this? Very similar to how Satyaki shared on the guesstimate problems, the number one thing to do is to ask the clarifying questions, because you want to ensure that you are on the same page as the interviewer. Any assumptions that you make without stating them could come to be costly, because he could be thinking of something else. Like in the case of this very specific question, how would you improve Facebook? You have to ask, okay, are you referring to Facebook app, or are you referring to Facebook as a company which has multiple portfolios like WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, etc., right? You will, so basically you have to ensure you ask the right questions to identify and agree on the scope of the product and the problem. If it is like a parking lot question, obviously your questions would be around, okay, who is this parking lot meant for? Is it for a commercial retail center, an office, an apartment, or is it like a paid parking center in a city which is making money? You want to understand about the user traffic patterns, etc., right? So all of those fall into the category of this clarifying questions. Now, one very important thing is try to see, I mean, here, maybe the answer you might get is, you are the VP of the product, you know it better, but doesn't harm to ask probing questions to understand if the business is facing some top of the mind challenge that they want to be solved. Maybe that's a clue for you to identify the right business objective and the right product improvements. Things could be like, for example, if I look from a Facebook perspective, are you seeing a challenge around declining monthly active users, or are you challenged to grow in a specific market segment, like maybe rural India? Are you seeing a specific market trend, like maybe moving into the voice-based social media platform, etc., right? So maybe this won't give you anything if the interviewer is tight-lipped, but if he wants you to be going in a specific direction, he has got something in his head, then he will be giving you some clues here that will help you make the right next steps. So after you have done the clarifying questions, the next big important thing for you is to establish a business objective. As a PM, very basic is, you won't get investments to do anything if you don't have a business objective, right? Or a business case associated with it. So what should be the key business objective when you are looking at this product improvement? And usually the key business or objectives will be like either acquisition of new users, retention of existing users, increasing your revenue, or increasing your customer engagement. At a high level, if you want to say, like, these will be the 4 big buckets into which the key business objectives will fall into. And which one will you pick typically depends on your current product state. If Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook maybe 2 months back, his focus would have been on acquisition of new users. But today, with probably 70, 80 billion annual revenue, probably that's not going to be his most important thing. He might think of, obviously, increasing revenue, but how would that revenue is coming for Facebook? It's primarily about their ad business. And ad business means you need more people who is spending more time with Facebook to sell ads to them. So effectively, for a product like Facebook, improving the customer engagement could be a very good business objective to pick from. And of course, sorry, I forgot to mention in the previous slide. I'm assuming that for today's the sample question, I'm going with the scope of Facebook to be the Facebook app, maybe your web, mobile app, whether it is iOS or Android. So that's sort of like the scope I'm taking, assuming it's blessed my interviewer. Okay. So for continuing with the process, I'm saying that yes, my key business objective is to improve customer engagement. And it's usually good to see if you could quantify that objective. Like, is it like by 10% or 20%? Or especially if it is like a revenue, right? If the objective that you are asked to pick is around revenue, then it's very important to quantify it, because an idea that need to result in a 10x growth will be very different from an idea which need to result in a 20% growth. So, but the key is always make sure any product sense question, you establish the product or the business objective, and then go to the end user to identify his pain points and stuff. Now, once you have set the business objective, you have to identify a North Star metric, like a key metric which will help you decide if the business objective is being addressed or met or not. So in the case of Facebook, when I'm picking customer engagement as my key objective, probably the key business metrics I would look at is like, okay, what's the number of monthly active users and what's the average active time a monthly active user is spending with Facebook, right? If these two numbers are going up, then the business is on the right track. But if this is going down, then I have a red flag. So the North Star metrics basically allows you at a business level to think if you are going in the right track, aligning with your objective, or you are digressing, or you need a corrective action. So now we have done things to be done on the business side of things. If you recall, like the product sense, I meant like you have the business side and you have the user empathy, right? So now we will go on to the user side of it. You have the business objective, but what will you do for the user so that he sees value in you? So that basically comes with identifying some user personas or user profiles and prioritizing them. So in this case, right, typically would suggest you pick at least 2, if not 3 personas that you would want to prioritize from. So the persona number 1 I'm picking here is, okay, I'm an office employee or a student, and I want to have weekend get together with my family or friends. We usually go for activities like hiking or eating out or going for maybe a resort or something like that. So can Facebook address this use case for the specific user persona? If I look at a very high level, before going into too much of weeds of it, I can see that this aligns very well with the Facebook's mission, which is around building communities by sharing, expression, etc. Right? So this is still bringing the community together in a social profile way. So it's a good fit in terms of the business mission of Facebook. Another persona that I might look at is like, okay, I'm a millennial in rural India. I see the craze of social media happening in the urban part of India. I want to be part of it. But I know I have a problem, which is the intermittent or slow internet connectivity, or maybe even like I have low device storage on my mobile. So this is definitely a big problem to address. In fact, Facebook tried to address it with their Facebook Lite version. But here, I'm not picking this persona as my core persona to start with, primarily because the stated business objective for me in this interview was improved customer engagement. Whereas here, whatever I try to do as Facebook, the experience that a user gets is going to be compromised if he does not have a good internet connectivity, right? At the end of it, I think Facebook even decided to close down their Facebook Lite which was aimed at providing a trimmed down version of the whole Facebook app, primarily catering for countries which were on 2G or having very low device storage, etc. But again, if you see here, I'm mapping this persona against my business objective and then making a call. Is it the right or the best persona for me to look at? Or maybe I have a better option. And between the persona 1 and persona 2, given that my focus is on customer engagement, I'm going with persona 1. But yeah, if let's say Facebook was started in India 6 months back, then as Mark Zuckerberg, probably I would have prioritized this persona, because my goal, my business objective itself is very different, right? Because it would have been like probably acquisition of users as the primary thing. And I'm in India, I want to get the maximum users there. Another persona could be like an handicraft merchant who want to sell his goods across the country. Like I don't have my own website, but I want to use the Facebook marketplace as a way to help me sell my goods across the country. Now, what could be the fit for this persona with what our business objective is? One, you can see that this is less of like, if he wants to really expand his business, then he really needs the logistics part of the e-commerce to be successful. And that's not something which fits very well with today's mission of Facebook. And if Facebook wants to go for doing that, obviously they can do it, but that means a change or an update of their mission statement, which comes with really enough weight being put behind that. So you will need a very, very strong business case and probability of success to get there to displace Amazons of the world. Another key concern is if he wants to do all e-commerce, then obviously the payment has to be part of the Facebook. And probably if you don't trust Facebook with your username password, forget you're trusting it with your credit card details, right? So that could be another concern. So from this set of personas, I'm going to pick persona 1. As you can see, this is not a very path-breaking moonshot idea. It's a very mediocre idea to start with, but maybe something realistic that you might come across or think about when you are when you are in an interview room. So now I have picked my user profile. How would I map him to how would I identify his pain points, right? So usually for identifying pain points of a user, it's a customer or user journey map is very, very useful. You try to list down what is the process or what are the steps the user will go through to achieve this use case. So in this case, as a person who want to plan for a get together, primarily maybe during weekends with his friends, what would be the key steps he will go through? One will be like he want to coordinate in his group of friends, identify some common interest, time, and a destination which will sort of like align with the common interest of that core members of the group. So if we drill it down a little better, the major pain point is like getting the right recommendations. Okay, where should I go, right? I wish someone was there to recommend me, okay, this is a place which aligns very well with your interest. Now, once I have got a few recommendations, I want to see, okay, is it really a good place? I want to research the credible reviews, because today getting reviews is not a very difficult thing. There are a lot of paid options for the reviews as well. So I want to ensure the reviews are credible, they're coming in from real people that I know of, etc. Right? So if I find, if I can help to identify credible reviews for a destination, that will help me choose the right one. And then, of course, once you have found something good, you want to share it with your friends, and collectively you want to make a decision. So this is like the one big pain point where people spend a lot of time researching on internet to if they are looking at this specific use case. And when you think from Facebook perspective, today this end user might be going to a TripAdvisor or to a Yelp or something like that, and he's spending more time on those platforms. If I was Facebook, I would probably want to have them spend those time in my platform that I can show more ads to them, right? So this is one big pain point part that I would identify. And then, of course, there are other steps involved, like I want to do a reservation or payment. I want to plan the logistics of commute during the day of the trip. And then, of course, finally sharing experience and reviews in my social circle. But from my product improvement perspective, I see that, yeah, the major pain point is around this first set of bullet points, and that's what I'm going to prioritize for my features. So with this pain points, I go into the product features that I want to prioritize. So I have created like a laundry list of like user stories, which we could say, yeah, this is my MVP to go to market. So effectively, I will have the Yelp type of FB pages for the major destinations, whether it is a restaurant or hiking trails, etc., where I will see user reviews, ratings, feedback, etc., right? Which will help me spend time in Facebook itself and get the research done. I would have some preference settings for this, what I call as meetup here, where I can specify which friends of mine I should be including in this meetup planning, the location preference, like probably within X miles of where I am residing, what type of activities, like I want to eat out or hiking or trails, etc., the dates, which works very well for us, etc. So based on this preference settings, I want the Facebook to provide recommendations. I mean, Facebook has all our data, like what I like, what I don't like, I mean, based on that, it's pretty easy for Facebook to have an AI-driven algorithm to pop me up with the right recommendations. Okay, you can plan your next meetup here. You have something going on here, etc. Right? So that's another feature which I would prioritize. And then, of course, it's all about amplification network effect. So I will have the going to meetup, like very similar to the going to event meeting notifications that we have today on Facebook. And then once you are there, you have experienced it, you want to post the reviews back to this Yelp type of a page, which will make sure the cycle continues, the feedback loop continues. So these are the things I will prioritize from an impact and efforts needed perspective. Now, there are a few other things like maybe I want to integrate with partner solutions for restaurant booking, resort reservation, etc. Or maybe even do all of that in Facebook, just like how a TripAdvisor does. Like you can even do the payment booking through Facebook. But again, this also goes back to the concerns I shared earlier. Do I want to get into the commercial aspect of it? Would people trust me with their payment data, etc., as Facebook, right? And then, of course, I mean, you want to have an integration with Uber or Lyft for booking the commute to the place, etc. But I mean, if you can see very well, like these are not part of my minimum viable product at all. Those are lower priorities, or maybe much higher efforts needed, depending on what you look at. So the ones in green is what I'm prioritizing to go forward, which will really address the pain point and achieve the business. And then obviously, whenever you are looking at anything like a UI, you should show the wireframing aspect. You can use pen and paper, whiteboard, or wireframing tools, depending on whether it's a interview happening now or you are given this as an assignment. But always make sure if it is something to do with user experience, provide a wireframing which shows how you think. And this is, I mean, I'm not spending time here because this by itself is a big topic which will consume a good amount of time. And then once you have defined all of this, you need to have some low-level metrics identified, which will track the success of this enhancement. For example, in this case, I want to see what's the growth happening with the new FB Yelp page reviews. That is during the month. How many more reviews are getting added on the FB Yelp page? Or how much is the growth happening on the FB Meetup schedules happening, right? So these are like matrices which will help me. Are the users using these specific new enhancements or not? Or is the growth aligned with my objectives or not? And this will keep track of, I mean, as a product manager, I always need metrics. So for the feature that I'm doing or for the overall business, I want to make sure the matrices are looked at to make sure we can do the right course correction as we progress. So finally, in an interview, you do all of it. And at the end of it, you have to summarize. So I'm summarizing here the steps, the 9 steps which we went through. So clarifying questions to start with, to identify the scope of the problem, identify the key business objective, and then define a key metric that will help you track this track your business objective, like the North Star metric for you. Then go to the user side, identify the user profiles and prioritize based on their fit into the business objective. Create a user journey map to identify the key pain points. Then prioritize the features based on what is most relevant, and do a wireframing and go with the defining the low level metrics. And finally, you can just summarize this all for the interviewer so that he really understands what was your thought process, how you went about it. And I mean, it will always be a very interactive discussion when you go for a product sense interview. Unfortunately, today with the limitation of time, we can't do that. But I mean, you can always expect interviewer to throw in something which might try to take you off the track, but always make sure you come back to this structure so that you don't go elsewhere and lose your track. So that's what primarily I wanted to share with you. Any questions, Steve?
Gokul, there is a question from Vinay, and there are two rather. So it's in the chat. One, he says, doesn't FB already have restaurant pages and meetup features? So he's going into specifics of the features that are there.
Right. So I haven't researched a lot. I know like FB has some events by itself. I don't know if they have really like a restaurant page like equivalent of a Yelp by itself, unless the businesses might want to have their profile there, right? In terms of like as a user, anyone can go and create their FB page. I can be a user or I can be a business. So you might see travel agencies creating there or restaurants creating there. But usually if as an end user, I want to research for a restaurant or a review, am I going to Facebook today? No, I'm going to maybe Google, I'm going to maybe Yelp to do that research. So unless you establish a platform to be really meant for that use case, you're not going to go there, right? So here the intention is like what a TripAdvisor is for trips, or like what a Yelp is for probably the reviews. If Facebook really become like, that's not like a side project, right? It's something which you emphasize on, and user understands that, okay, Facebook is the best place for me to get the right reviews and research done. Then that's what I'm talking about today. Like they do have some of these capabilities. I know, like meeting events as an example, but it's like you have these events happening, these people are going, but I don't get any more information. Okay, is this event really good? What has been the feedback about this from the past experience? If to research for that, I have to go elsewhere, probably to a Google or any other platform.
Detailed explanation, and I'd like to add to that, Gokul. I think with the very specific feature that's here, like the restaurant page or the meetup feature, in the context of the interview itself or the process of the interview, it's not absolutely necessary that you're spot on in really creating a new feature altogether. It may be an existing feature, you may not be aware of it, but that's fine, right? Because the interview just wants to look at how you have tackled the entire problem, and how you have come up and your reasoning. So what you gave now was a perfect reasoning to that question, and that probably could be an interviewer question, right? That you already probably have it, but then you sort of gave an answer to that interviewer in that way, and that's the crux of managing and staying back on track. The interviewer tries to throw you off track, and you want to always come back on track. There is another one here from Udaya saying, I was a TAC engineer for a good 3 years with Juniper Networks, and how do I link that experience to my PM transition journey to network companies such as Cisco, Citrix, Aryaka? Any pointers, please?
With respect to transitioning into a product manager role from a TAC role, I know personally a lot of my friends who have done that transition. So it's not, it's not like a impossible battle for sure. So the one big advantage for you would be the fact that when you look at the product companies that you stated, they typically have a lot of weightage for the domain expertise as well. Like if you are from a networking domain, then that is valued from a product management perspective as well. So the key would be to identify opportunities where which aligns very well with what you have done in the past. Like for example, you may, as a TAC engineer, you would have been doing a lot of front ending with customers, and as well as like you might be very detailed on the technology side of things. So that could work to your advantage. But I would say like you would need to do a few things. One, identify the right opportunities which fits in with your expertise. Second, you should always try to get in touch with probably PMs in your company, so that you can get an opportunity to work with them in some shadow projects, PM projects, etc., which will bring you to their radar of, okay, there is a candidate whom I could consider when there is opening coming in. So I would highly encourage the second one, especially if you can work with your PM teams to get to do some projects that would help you showcase a lot of credibility from a PM perspective in your resume, as well as getting them to know you and put you in their radar when an opportunity comes in next time. In fact, that's something which I did in my career. Initially I started off in engineering. I did my MBA and then I transitioned to product management. But effectively, when I was hunting for the product management role, what I did was to work with the PMs in Cisco. I was in Cisco at that point of time, and I worked on a couple of projects, PM projects. That added a lot of weightage for me in my profile, as well as when there was an opportunity later on in Cisco, I was able to grab that.
Perfect, Gokul. I think he
And it's not just for hardware. In my case, I was completely on the software side. But yeah, it's technology. So when you look at technology, it's a little different. So whether it is hardware or software, it's possible. But you would need to have this background work done.
So I think he asked the right question to the right person. Yeah. So thanks, Gokul. That was a wonderful. I wish in my early days I had attended a session with you or a session like this, where it was so clear as to what you need to do and what sort of mindset you need to sit at the interview table with, and beautifully covered by you. So thank you so much for that.